to another edition of Tackle Shot Live. How's it going, Larry? Look at who's holding down the fort tonight. Nick and George.
Oh, yeah.
That's right.
The next day you called me up. You told me I'm your little buttercup. You came over and you fell into my arms.
See if we have these buttons figured out tonight.
Well, I know what I feel. Please tell me your love is real.
Oh,
yeah. You make me smile.
Ron's back dancing. What's going on?
I can't get enough.
And Edward. Conway. Oh, yeah.
Conway's in the house.
Absolutely. Grandpa Mike.
Yeah, that happened.
Well, let's get it started. We got plenty of people coming on in, and we got a great show lined up. What do you think, George?
Well, I mean, you know, we have some exciting stuff going on tonight. We have a fantastic guest.
Oh, yeah.
Who's waiting in the wings for us.
Yep, and you know what? We're not going to screw around too long, right?
No, we don't want to kill his whole night. We're gonna bring him on first for all you guys to enjoy his story and his tips and tactics that we can pry from him.
And that's right. And who we're talking about, ladies and gentlemen, before we bring him on, is Michael Catt. And he just won a heck of a tournament, didn't he, George?
He did. He won the Toyota Series event on the Potomac River last week. And that's a pretty big win.
Huge.
I mean, the Potomac River is a, you know, as all tidal bodies of water over a multi-day event, 3 days. It's tough. It's tough to win an event like that. But how about leading it
and the pressure?
Oh, going into the final day, we even talked about that last week. We talked about, you know, who was behind him and how well he was going to sleep.
And we were talking to him a little bit before the show here. And George, you were right. I mean, you laid it out perfectly. He came up, he answered the challenge, and now we want to get talking to him because he's heading down to Georgia. He's a road warrior. You know what I mean, George?
There's no doubt. I mean, if you're gonna be a successful tournament angler today, outside of just your region, you better like to drive.
Well, he's heading to Georgia for a national championship. So, you know how momentum is, George.
Well, you can keep it going for a long period of time. I mean, eventually it's going to turn on you, but, you know, coming off a win like that, there's nothing going to stop you. Nothing.
Well, without further ado, welcome everybody. We got Michael Catt coming in.
There he is.
How's it going, Michael?
Thank you for having me.
There we go. We got you now.
Absolutely. Congratulations on your big win. Man, that had to be a game changer for you as you go forward with your fishing career. What do you think?
It's a huge change for me. It gave me a lot of momentum to even fire my buttons a little harder. So I'm going striving now. I mean, we all want another win. I hope that happens for me. And now I'm shooting for AOI for the Northerns and going to run the rest of the events out and see what I can do of them.
So with that being said there, Michael, before we get into the Potomac tournament, you know, talk to us a little bit about your career in fishing before you got to the Potomac. What's it been like? What's led you to this spot you're in right now?
So for a long time, I've been nothing but a co-angler. Co-angling has taught me a lot of, patience, perseverance, confidence in what I have to do behind someone that like Matt Baker or Spencer Sheffield or Jason or Jacob Prosnick or any big names like that you can draw completely changes your life, because you're fishing behind one of the best people, you can actually be with. So it's like a tool in one sense, but I grew up doing nothing but co-angling for a long time. I traveled with a guy named Jeff Fitz all over the place for almost 10 years. And, the last 3 years have been really great. The 3 years prior to that, he kept telling me, man, it's time to go to the front of the boat. Time to go to the front of the boat. And I finally stepped it up and fished the MPFL one year and did really well. And, I never looked back after that. I stayed in the front of the boat, and I've always done well at Potomac River. Even as a co-angler, I've got a 3rd place there. Had a top 25 there. And then moving up to the boater side, I've had a top 25, a top 10, and then, so
There it is.
It's been great. So, I always liked the Potomac. The Potomac's always fit me, especially from where I'm from here in Florida. Tidal is, I grew up on a tidal river, over in Pensacola. Every one of those rivers over there is tidal. And then I moved over here to Jacksonville, and growing up fishing with my dad and jumping in here and there tournaments with my buddies and my dad. And, I've come accustomed to it. So, ever since I first laid eyes on Potomac, it just fit me. I felt good. I felt confident in places like that. It just came easy to me to understand the fish and the reality of what they're doing.
Right. So as you get in this tournament for the Potomac, I'm sure you spent quite a few days pre-fishing. And as you're doing that, you're dialing in. And I did listen to your interview a little bit when you were weighing in, or as you were doing your social media. And it really seemed like you dialed into something special. Clue us into what you were looking for, what you seen, and how it all kind of transpired for you in that pre-fishing.
So prior to coming to the Potomac, I knew what time of the year it was. It's spawning season. A lot of the word was there is no spawners. They're on the tail end. It's post-spawn. And then as I'm listening more and looking, there's still spawners there. There was still some spawning. So we're literally on the end of this spawn. And, there's just casual ones here and there. And as I approached it years ago, in my co-angling years, I drew a guy who was local that showed me this area that has been really special. I've kept it hush hush. I've never tried to show anybody that. The guy was like, look, man, he said, this place replenishes itself. It always has something for fish to feed on, to set up on, to live around. The abundance that, of grass and structure that's around there is just habitat. And it holds bait fish, and it holds, any other fish as well. But what's so special about it, we'll get into in just a minute. But as I got there, this trip, every trip I get here, I start there just to check it, because it's a very special area. So I go there, very first thing, first of all, I arrive and I'm thinking daylight's at 6 and daylight's at 5. So I woke up completely late and everybody's out there already. So I was like, oh, well. I look at the tide. The tide is fixing to be low, like absolutely low. And I was like, okay. And so I run to that spot. Very first thing, there's like 4 or 5 boats in there. All right. So I pull in there. There's a guy at one spot, and I said, hey, man, hey. He just sits down and leaves. So I go a little further up on a grass stretch that I really like, and there's a guy fishing it. And I'm like, okay, he's probably fished it all. But I go by him and I say, hey, man, how you doing? He said, man, it's rough. I can't get bit. Caught one little 12-incher back there. So I don't know what to do. I'm struggling. I'm out of here. He sits down and leaves. And I was like, okay. Like another 100 yards is my personal stretch that I really love. And it's nothing but lay downs and a little bit of grass on both ends. I get up there and I overlook, you can see over the grass as far out as you can. And I see power poles going down. So I knew there was one more boat up there. And I have a couple of bends up in this creek. Now I'm way back in the creek now. And it gets real tight and windy. And I see these power poles and they're stopping. He stops right on one of the bends that I absolutely love to fish. There's something special about that bend. It really loads up and holds fish. And I didn't know. I thought he found it. But then I seen him keep on going. And I was like, okay. And I flip over in my first laydown and I got bit him. I mean, it didn't even hit the bottom. I got bit immediately. And I decided to check it. And it was a 6.2. And I was like, oh my God. What the very first bite in practice, and it's a 6.2. So I put him back. No one's painted. No one's around. And I probably got 18 laydowns in front of me. And I'm telling you, I probably got bit on every one of them except 2. And I got, I shook them off. I try and pull them up so I can see them, but I'm fishing anywhere from 2 to 3 foot of water. So one of them shoots up, comes to the top. It's a 4 or 5 pounder. I was like, all right, I'm done here. So I go on back to that bend where I thought that there's kayakers everywhere. I said, that's why he stopped there, because he was working through them kayakers. Well, lucky for me, sorta, I would have checked it anyhow. One of the kayakers had foul hooked something. He was chasing it down. And I asked the other 2, I said, do you mind if I fish right here? And they were like, no, go ahead. And I look up the sonar, and there's like 40 fish up there. I'm like, holy crap, they're just sitting on top of them. They have no clue. They're snakehead fishing. And they have no clue what they're over top of. So I pitch up there. Very first cast, I catch a 3 pounder. I pitch up there again. I catch another 2.5, 2.75. The guy goes, man, what are you throwing? I said, a yellow wacky rig, and I put my rod down. I didn't want him to catch them.
That's what you got to do.
And he said, I heard about that.
Yeah. So I set that rod down, and I sat down and started going towards the back, and here comes that other boat. That boat was like, I know this creek. I know what's back there. And I asked him, I said, was there anything back there in that little pond back there? No, it's trash. I said, okay. Well, I spun it around with him. He left and I left. Now, I didn't want no one else to see me back there. So I just got out of there. I mean, that was all within 35 minutes. And I never went back till day 1 because I knew what was there. 100% confident in what was there. And I knew what it was gonna do. These fish, there's what's that?
I said, I'm listening to you. And I think.
Oh, these,
you there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm here.
Well, I'm listening to what you're saying. And what I think is, your key here is what you start off with is the fact that there was still some fish spawning.
Yeah.
I do. I really do, because it's very unusual to fish 3 days in the back of the same creek and win a tournament like that. I mean, that's without throwing some main river in. That is very impressive. Very, very impressive. If I was you, the next time I go up in there, I'd look like a Navy SEAL sneaking in, man. Like nobody would see me. I'd practice at night or something.
What? Some of a couple of them did catch. I put them in the boat real quick, and they were peeing. So I knew that it felt to me like what was happening is there was a bunch of spawners in this. There's a really, really big flat next to me with pads everywhere. So what they're up. I can't get my boat in there. You'd need an express boat or a flats boat to get up in there. But I feel like they were spawning, and my best bite was on low tide. Like it was hot, it was sunny, calm, and it was low tide during practice, and it was a phenomenal practice there. So what I feel like is what they were doing was spawning, And when that low tide came in, they couldn't sit up there no more, so they had to pull out. They're tired. They rested in the areas, and so they could feed up in the easiest areas, and that was those laydowns, the grass stretch, and that bend. They just kept replenishing every day.
Yeah, they were working their way out. Is that what you're feeling? You feel they were working their way out, right?
I feel like they were working their way out. They were done. I didn't catch any my big ones. They were already spawned out. I mean, if they were still full of roe, whew.
So Michael,
that would have been some big old bags.
When you start the tournament now, you know, you get into day one, you're probably real excited about going to this area. You know what you got, you know, but you know, now you got to kind of manage what you have. How do you go about that for 3 days? What's your game plan?
Well, so luckily for me, my very first fish was that 611 on day one, and that really checks off the okay, I got the big one out of the way. and honestly, I never fished that during high tide, and it was high tide. So did I get lucky? No, I knew them fish were there. But that was definitely the way to start a tournament off on day one, was catching that big old fish. So the co-angler I had in my boat said, man, you just got big fish of the tournament, and that's a 7-pounder. And I was like, are you serious? I weighed it, and it's 612 on my scale, but 611 when we weighed it in. And I was like, man, I caught a 6.2 just like 10 yards away in practice. So once I hit fish? 16, 17, yeah. So once I hit 16 or 17 pounds, I was feeling it. I was like, man, I need to manage these fish, because you don't know how much, you know, what's going to be the next day. You just hope and have confidence in that spot. And I knew it was going to replenish. And I also knew that it was going to be really good when it got low tide. And every day when it got low tide, it was just like, man, the big ones just played. So I think I had 18 pounds off of doing about 4 stretches on that wood. And then I moved up to my bend and caught one big one right off the bat, and it put me over 20. So I was, I told my co-angler, I said, man, I can't fish any this more. No more.
Yeah.
I said, I'll go out to the front, and I got some other stuff to fish. So.
Yeah. At that point, you're good. Fish, you know, get your co-angler his limit, and go and just practice. I mean, you're golden, and you got the whole area to yourself. So, you know, the only downside to it is that tide's moving an hour later every day.
Yeah, every day it changed an hour, and the only thing that really sort of concerned me was day one and day two, we had nasty weather. It was covered. We had rain. We had a lot of wind, and I didn't feel like that was going to hinder my fish. I just feel like the bite was going to be different, in which it was. I mean, I literally got the bites, but they were all big bites, the ones that I got. And I had fish for my co-anglers, you know, in day one, day two, my co-anglers, all 3 days actually caught limitable fish. Day three, my co-angler just caught all small ones, and he had one that was good. And but days 1 and day 2, my co-anglers should have had a limit. They just lost a couple.
Yeah.
Which, you know, that's going to happen on the Tidal River, man, because those fish are wild.
Yes, very. And I had other places. I had 2 places in the river that I had fish on, and they were just big bite fish. Like, it was going to be a big fish or it wasn't going to work. And both of them were being pounded by that wind and that weather. And then I had a frog mat. I had one mat that was like 50 yards, 60 yards long, and it was full of fish. But I couldn't fish that either. People were fishing it, or it was just covered up. So I just stuck to that strip and went on in.
That's good stuff. For those of you just joining us, I see a bunch of you are tuning in here. We are enjoying a conversation with Mr. Michael Catt, who won the Toyota Series event on the Potomac River last week, actually. That's nice fishing a tournament during the week.
That is awesome.
That's like good stuff.
Yeah.
But Mike's been kind enough to grace us with some time. He's on his travels right now to a big championship tournament for him in Georgia, and he was kind enough to pull over and spend a little bit of time going over his championship story. We're picking his brain. He might not know it yet, but we're very good at the art of interrogation. We're picking his brain. We're enjoying our conversation. We're glad you joined in. This is Tackle Shop Live. You got cameraman Nick and George behind tonight. Mike is off. Mike, for those of you just joining, Mike became a grandfather today, so everyone's doing well.
Congrats.
Yeah, and we decided that me and Nick could handle this job.
Oh yeah, we got it.
Yeah,
George.
we're actually learning just how easy it is what Mike does.
Yeah, he
so
makes it look hard, but
this is going to change. This is a changing moment in Tackle Shop Live.
I got the buttons down. I remembered them. There's no confusion.
Yeah, we're going to have a realignment of power on this bad boy.
Hey, Michael, I got to ask you because this came up, last week, believe it or not, we were talking about you. So your ears had to be ringing last Thursday night, and George is the man. He's always on top of tournaments every time. And, he called it out and he said, you were winning after day 2. And, I'm sure after day 2, your nerves had to be a wreck of some sort. And George, let him know what you were saying Thursday night.
Well, if you guys who watched the show last week remembered, we talked about this tournament because, as those of you who know us, the Potomac River is near and dear to our hearts. I mean, it's arguably the greatest tidal fishery certainly on the East Coast. I mean, them California Delta people might want to argue a little bit, but it's an amazing fishery. It's a true gem and a treat to fish it. So, we're going to break every tournament down that's on there. So, we're talking about this Michael Catt guy who we don't know. And we're saying this guy is handling business, but we don't think he's going to sleep too good last Thursday or last Wednesday night. And if you recall, we said, third place, Spike Stoker. Spike Stoker's a hammer. He's a trained professional bass angler who can get it done. Fifth place, Mr. Toyota Series, Mr. Potomac River. Brian Schmidt. This guy has taken more of my money than the IRS on the Potomac River. All of it. I don't know how you even sleep with him because, he was just sharpening his freaking Hayabusas just waiting for you. And then 8th place, you probably didn't recognize the name. Young up-and-coming pro, actually part of a pair of brothers that are sticks. John Duarte, 8th place. You probably didn't look out for him, and you may not have looked out for 16th place. It was Jeff Coble, who has, there's been more people driving home from the final day of a tournament ready to sell it all and take up golf after Jeff Coble gets done with them. And then, of course, Pete Gluzik in 18th, and then, of course, Jacob Poroznik, who in 22nd. And our whole thing was, Michael Catt, you won't be sleeping on Wednesday night. And then you went out there on Thursday and handled business. Handled business, my man. I would like you to, if you don't mind, break down some of the nuts and bolts of how you went about catching these fish. Tidal water, obviously, that situation you were in, there's a few key techniques and a few key baits. How did you come up with your formula?
So, as we spoke earlier, I fished all my life in tidal rivers. I was born and raised over in Pensacola, Florida, where I have 3 rivers that are all tidal. And then I moved to Jacksonville. And one thing I've always learned is bass will always bite better on an outgoing tide. So no matter what, I try to put myself in that kind of position. And knowing that the field is so vast, we had 190 boats, right? So knowing that the grass wasn't there this year, really. I mean, there was an abundant, don't get me wrong, but not like last year, not like the previous year, where you could step up like Christian Greco did and just whack them flipping a solid wall, and that wasn't there. So me trying to step outside the zone, I like fishing these backwaters. I'm accustomed to it, so I went back there. Earlier in practice, I was in a clear water area, and I noticed that there was a lot of crawfish on the sand, and there was a lot of bluegill with real chartreuse tails. Now, that's no special key. Everybody knows you can chartreuse your tails and catch them because it works. And quite a few guys doing stuff like that. I had a little thing that I wanted to try, and I picked up a bruiser hog and was flipping it with a 1/4 ounce weight up to laydowns. And I was picturing what these fish were actually going to be doing, and they were coming out. And after I caught a few that was, I felt like was spawners or pre-spawners and small bucks from Florida, they get tired chasing things off. They're not going to be out there wandering around so much. They were lazy. They want to get up, rest. So they positioned themselves on them logs and them laydowns that I had and them brush tops. Even out of the grass stretches, they would put their nose right up in that grass. Tidal stuff. They just wanted to calm themselves and eat. So what I did was on my tight bends, I could see there was fish on them, and they were sitting there just eating whatever came in front of their face, but they weren't moving around a lot. So I put a lot heavier weight on. I think I was throwing like a 3/8 or an 1/8 ounce in between there on a drop shot and letting it drag right into their face, and then they would eat. And that helped. I mean, that was a huge, huge player for me because it always called out a bunch of my smaller fish. And like on day 3, I probably called 4 or 5 times off that drop shot just by ounces, but it still, but my key bait was a bruiser hog bait. It's similar to a brush hog, but it's a bruiser hog. And I was dyeing my tips and my flanges and my appendages chartreuse or red to match that bait. And I would pitch it over with a 1/4 ounce flat out tungsten and a 5/0 owner hook. I was throwing 17-pound test and 20-pound test Seagar Brazex. I'd pitch it over to them laydowns, and just if you move too fast, like I said, they didn't want to be fast active. They wanted something easy. And if you moved it too fast, they just wouldn't eat. You had to literally just let that current pull that bait underneath them things and drag them, and literally drag it right down the side of the fish till he ate. That's pretty much how I did it all 3 days. And it just, thank God, it just kept replenishing. I seen the fish coming. I knew what they were doing. I mean, this is the first time I literally can say I felt I knew exactly what the fish were doing. I knew where they were and where they were going and how they were setting up. I mean, when you feel that, you got it. This is really the first time I've ever done that. And I knew what was going to happen if I just stayed confident, stayed patient with them. It's only a 200-yard stretch. That's all I ran all 3 days. And I would make like 5 passes on it. And then I'd move over to my grass and make another pass over there. Let more move up. And then I would move up to my bend on low tide only, because that's the only time they would be there, heavily and feed good. So that was my whole pattern, was just to pluck them away as they came out of the pad fields and as they came out of all that grass where they were spawning at, and they couldn't be back there on low tide.
Michael, that's awesome. Your confidence. So you said it right there. Confidence is key, because even in practice, it proves your point. You were confident, you knew the area, but the guys that were in there didn't. They were there, but they weren't mentally there. They were quick to leave as soon as they go their way.
Yeah, and a lot of them were fishing way too fast. They didn't want fast stuff. It pays to slow down. I can't say that enough. And the one person who taught me that was my dad. My dad would pick up this dang Cinco and whoop my butt with it over years. I'm like, I hate a Cinco. I don't want a Cinco. But you know what? A Cinco has made me more money now than I think I ever have. So he's taught me a valuable lesson. So I give my dad a lot of a lot of respect, and
That's awesome.
his knowledge has came over to me and taught me who I am now. So
Well, that's
slow
great
down
stuff.
is a big key in this stuff.
Mike would not let me sleep tonight without phone calls if I didn't ask you, with your drop shot, what was your bait of choice with your drop shot?
So I'm fine with it. I literally have been working with this bait. It is a Bruiser's drop shot. This color I've been working with for about 3 years now, and it has done wonders all over. I've been catching them in St. Lawrence. I've caught them in Champlain. I've caught them in Table Rock. I've caught them almost everywhere with it. Even here in Florida, they like it. And we're naming it the Potomac Special. It will be out and available and stuff, but it's about a 4. It's going to come in different sizes, but it's just a really dark fluorescent, purple color drop shot. And to me, if I made it too high, the fish wouldn't eat it. They were so harsh, to stay so low on the gravel or on the bins, up on the shelf, that their bellies would be all scarred up. They stay on it so hard. So they're not real high. So I had to literally put my weight, my hook would be only like 8 inches above my weight or smaller, 6 to 8 inches above my weight. And I would get numerous bites.
Yeah, that's real good stuff.
So Mike, again, congratulations on your tournament. That is awesome. And now,
thank you.
What were your thoughts immediately after the tournament? You watch all these hammers weigh in, and sooner or later, the weigh-in line is done. And you're always looking out there to see if there's any more lingering around waiting to weigh in. What are your thoughts immediately after?
Well, I was, after day one, I knew what I had when I was coming in. I was like, man, there ain't going to be too many to have this. And when I came in, a gentleman had weighed in a 20.2 bag. And I was like, I didn't know exactly what I had, until it crosses the scales. But I was like, I just got beat out by an ounce. I got a mega bag for the Potomac and I got beat out by an ounce. So to do that twice, you got to literally have, fish on cue. And I knew deep down I had fish on cue, and I knew I had a lot of confidence in this area and it was going to happen. I just had to be patient with them and not go nowhere, just trust in it. And it worked, Nice.
Yeah.
But when I weighed in after day one, I found myself, my co-angler, not my co-angler, but my travel partner was like, dude, let's go. I'm like, I got to watch. I got to keep watching. And then day two, I did the same thing. I was nervous that someone was going to come over me, but leading day two, it made me really nervous. And I did toss and turn a little bit at night, knowing that I had hammers right behind me. Don't slack on Tommy Dickerson now. That man can catch them too. And Spike's freaking phenomenal. And then you got Brian Schmidt right. He's just a few pounds down. He can pull out a 20-pound bag. And what made me more nervous is that these guys are hammers, and we're about to have beautiful weather. And I know what I did in beautiful weather. I was figured there was going to be some really big bags. So I was swinging for everything, hoping that I would have another 20-pound bag. But throughout the day, I was just counting up 2 pounds. Tommy's got to have 15 now. Tommy's got to have 17 now. And I'm like, man, Tommy's got to have 19 pounds today to beat me. The rest of them's got to have 20-pound bags. So I felt like I had a really good shot at an hour till I had to go in. But it's never over. It's never over. I was shaking. I was nervous. I was asking questions. It's something that I'll never forget, man. This is something, it's a long time coming. And I am so thankful, man, I could sit here and just, I can't, I'm speechless about some things, man. It's just, it was just, they always say when it's your time, it's going to happen. Nothing's going to stop it. It's just meant to be. So I felt like that's what happened to me. It was just my time. It was in the place that I love and understood. And it was, it's something that'll never go forgotten. That's for sure.
Well, that's great. Like I said, congratulations. We're super pumped for you. That's why we knew we wanted to, let you get on here and tell your story, because we knew how great it would be. But now you're not done, because now you're on the road again. Road warrior. What do you got cooking?
So this is, you mentioned it earlier. It's not a national championship. It is a state championship for fish Bass Nation stuff too, and try and qualify to go to the Bassmaster. But this is Lake Seminole. I'm going to practice right now. It's next week. It's my state championship to qualify to go to nationals though. So that being said, I've got my information dialed in. We're going to hit it hard starting tomorrow and this weekend, and hopefully make it to nationals with that. But after that, a couple weeks later, I got to head to Champlain. The AOI race is still going to go on, and I'm still looking for that number one place, because I have a mantle with a lot of room, and I could use a couple more of these on my mantle. So
very nice.
My momentum is on fire right now, and the boys better watch out, because I'm coming up there. I'm gonna hit Champlain, then we're gonna head it to St. Lawrence River out of Messina, New York, and then we're gonna drop back down to finish out the rest of the Southerns on Santee Cooper in September. And then of course I've clinched my ticket to Wheeler in November. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it all, man. I'm pumped.
That is probably one of the most best values in tournament fishing. That's an understatement. That's one of the most hot. That's one of the hottest tickets in tournament fishing. No entry fee for $250K.
Can't beat that.
Are they still paying $250 in that championship? Yeah, that is.
I believe it's.
Losing connection here, maybe.
It was 250. I know it was 250. I don't know if it is this year with some cutbacks and whatnot, but that is a big one. That one there is a big one. You want to carry that momentum on through that one too. Well, Mike, we're going to let you go.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to Wheeler.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's a big time. Hey, Mike, before we let you go here, and we appreciate your time, we appreciate everything, and again, congratulations. But how can anybody that's watching right now or listening, what's your social media where they can follow you at?
So you can go to Michael Catt Fishing. My Facebook pages are on Michael Catt Fishing. My Instagram's Michael Catt Fishing. My YouTube, Michael Catt Fishing and Outdoors.com there. So, and I'm even on TikTok under Michael Catt Fishing. So you can find me easily that way. I appreciate the shares, the follows, and invites and stuff like that. So check me out, follow me. That'd be awesome. We got a lot of stuff coming, and I got some new stuff coming up that a lot of people are going to want to know about. So
we'll be following.
Yeah,
yes, we will.
It's going to be,
and again, good luck for the rest of the year. We'll be following you hot and heavy there, and keep in touch. Thank you for coming to the show tonight. We do appreciate it.
We really do. Thanks for your time. And good luck in your next few tournaments. Hope everything falls into place for you. And congratulations one last time. Thanks, Mike.
more than welcome. Thank you for having me on here. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Well, win another one and we'll do it again.
That's right.
All right. Sounds good.
See ya. So there you have it, folks. Michael Catt, winner of the Costa Toyota. Yeah, I call it Costa Toyota series event down at the Potomac. That's big time. And I know, George, what I really liked about it is you and I and Mike talk a lot about the Potomac, and I know how near and dear it is to your heart. And, That was a big win.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of there's a big story here for Michael, and everybody that follows this route that he's taken. So here we got a guy who's a Federation angler who is expanded. I'm sure he fished many a BFL, expanded into the Toyota series as a way of continuing to grow that passion for tournament fishing. Has fished multiple divisions. It's one thing to fish, one division, 3 tournaments. It's another thing to fish 2 divisions, 6 tournaments. Much bigger variety of water.
Yeah.
So what I'm painting the picture here is we got an angler here that is well-versed in tidal water. He's going to Lake Seminole, so he's well-versed in southern U.S., southeast U.S., bass fishing. He mentioned Wheeler. He's well-versed in Tennessee River.
Yep.
Reservoir, impoundment, ledge fishing, all that goes with that, which is what we're watching today.
Yep.
And now he's going up north to the Champlain and the Thousand Islands, Lake Ontario, so he's well-versed in northern smallmouth fishing and northern largemouth fishing. So, what we're seeing here is the development of how you go pro.
Absolutely.
And what I really liked about his story is how he started as a co-angler.
I was just going to say that's big deal.
And I really think the proper way to do this for everyone aspiring is to fish a season or 2 as a co-angler. Experience the procedure, experience the variety of waters, see how, if you fish 6 or 8 tournaments a year for 2 years, see how 12 or 16 other anglers go about it. Be exposed to that. I'm not saying that co-anglers are, emulating their pro partners, but they're learning at a greater clip. It's like joining a bass club.
Absolutely.
If you join a bass club and you fish most of the club's tournaments for a couple of years, you're going to fish with, quite a few different anglers, and it's the same concept at a more basic level. So what Michael Catt's doing is pretty impressive. And to come up here on a Toyota, on a Potomac, which is a challenging fishery, and then no less to win in the back of a creek, to fish the back of a creek for 3 days. That is very rare.
All the stars aligned on that one.
That's
George.
very rare. The fact that he was dealing with those spawners that were moving on out is what made that. Those creeks they have residential fish,
yep,
and then they have an influx of spawning fish. And then they, in the fall, they have an influx of fish following bait. But those large numbers that he was seeing aren't normal. Some creeks obviously hold more than others. Like if you look at the Mattawoman Creek, that's kind of like its own body of water.
Right.
That's not like a normal creek. That just has insane quantities of every kind of fish there is on that river in it.
That's awesome.
For all you guys who are tuning in now, we started a little different tonight. We got off. We're doing things a little different than the plan. You'll notice it's just myself and cameraman Nick. Mike is a new grandfather today.
Congratulations, Mike.
And he's spending some time with the family. Soaking up the moment. He was kind enough to come in and hook up the 4,000 wires and cameras and mics.
Yeah, he did a heck of a job. I don't know if we would have, but we got it figured out.
We'd have had something plugged in somewhere.
We probably would have. And you know what else we got to do, George, is we got to congratulate Caitlin.
Yeah.
Because she's now a mom. She's got a little baby boy. Yep. Congratulations, Caitlin. I know you're watching. Congratulations.
Yep. She's behind the scenes. Big player here at SFT.
That's right.
We're going to miss her too while she's on maternity leave.
Big deal.
Well, it's good. The state just cut it back to 5 weeks. That's big for me. Get back here quick.
That's great.
Say hi for a few people here. How about Dave Wilder checking in? Dave, good to hear from you.
He's probably on the bay right now watching Tackle Shop Live.
No doubt. Dave's been a long time supporter of SFT. Thanks for watching, Dave. Joshua Weinbrenner is always in the house. We got Lisa Lake Fishing Club.
Yeah.
I mean, thanks for tuning in tonight, guys. We started the show off a little different, and we had a guest who was traveling. Michael Catt was on his way to pre-fish in Lake Seminole. Mm-hmm. We didn't want to tie him up for too long, so we figured we'd get him on quick. We knew we were going to run a little long with him, but we tried our best to keep it in a fair timeshare because, you know, it was gracious to loan us his time.
Absolutely. But guess what, George? Now it's time for one of our favorite parts of Tackle Shop Live.
Oh, we love it. Let's see if you can do this right.
Here we go. Wrong one.
Close enough.
We're good.
I like it.
Tackle Talk. Here we are.
I like it.
Ready for this, George?
Oh.
That's a dumb question.
Dialed in, baby.
That's right.
I started getting ready for Tackle Talk like, let me see, last Friday.
Nice.
Well, you know, I work pretty close with our web guys, our main web guy, Matt, and you know, we started putting this one together, but a little different. You know, we're not trying to get in a rut here. We're not trying to follow the same old MO, and I think we've done a good job of that.
Oh, yeah.
You know, we're going to talk about a few things that are trending. This Tackle Talk is all about some trending techniques and products. And first thing we're going to talk about is some micro jigs. Cameraman Nick's going to slide out to his task at hand. And, you know, the micro jig thing, certainly not new, Nick, but trending upwards, as they say. And, you know, here is a prime example of a micro jig. Here's my thumb. Right? So we have here is a Kitech. And if you're looking for it, it's the Guard spin jig. Okay. These are tungsten heads. These are 5/32 and an eighth. Tied skirts. Little bitty hooks. Super sharp though. Little thin weed guards. And there's a magical element to micro jigs where in times of like really like all different periods of the year, in times of like not necessarily just a tough bite, but they do generate a little pattern all to themselves. You can actually generate a little pattern with a micro jig. Now you're going to fish this on spinning tackle. Okay. Or for you BFS fans out there, you might have a BFS setup, but for the most part, we're going to fish it on spinning tackle. We're going to fish, you know, braid to a leader. We're going to fish straight fluoro. And we're not going to do a whole lot different than we would any other finesse technique. Nick, are you a micro jig guy?
I love the micro jig. You know, the first time I ever tried a micro jig, and it's one that you have up here, you're going to be showing here in a second. I was at Blue Marsh. It was summertime, and the bite was tough, and it was a lunker day. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to try this. And it's the exact same setup you have there, so I can't wait for you to show it. But when you do, I ended up winning lunker that day with a almost 4-pound smallmouth. And it was eye-opening to me because I was just trying it. I wasn't, it's one of those things where you walk through the shop, George, and I'm like, hey, that's a good idea for that thing. And they work. And now it's just something that, every year I have to add to the arsenal.
Well, what I'm looking for in a micro jig is a little weed guard. Mm-hmm. And if you look at the Kitech, Again, we'll go back to this guard spin jig. We have a little fiber guard up in here. Not much. I mean, it's light. Remember, we're on a spinning rod here. So we have 5 or 6 strands, fiber weed guard. You can see it really good right there. On the Z-Man, this is the Micro Finesse Jig Shrooms. Very good weed guard. That little twin wire. You can adjust that. I have it adjusted the way I like it. And trending is that setup right there. A finesse micro jig with a TRD. That is a trending deal right there. That's been building. There's people been doing this for a few years now, but it's becoming a big deal in all circumstances. And that's one of my favorite color combinations, black and blue with a green pumpkin. The TRD shroom is another great example to go along with the Kitech guard spin jig. The Kitech's coming at you at $429. Okay. Comes through cover real well. And a lot of times when it does hang, you can pop it just like you would a TRD or something of that nature. And it'll pop right out. And when you do that, don't reel it in, finish your retrieve because you're drawing attention. It comes in all the great colors. Check out the colors, sfttackle.com. Peanut butter jelly, black, blue, a couple different green pumpkins. All the hits. $429. The Shrooms Micro Finesse Jig is a 2-pack for you. Comes in 1/8 and 3/16. Sorry, I don't have the price for you, but it's reasonable. And then we have the Missile Jigs Ike's Mini. Now, let me show you. This is Ike's Micro. I'm sorry. I'm so used to talking about their little flipping jig. You'll notice the weed guard's not there. But in the package is the weed guard. Put a little drop of super glue in there and glue it in. And you have a slightly different keeper. Very good keeper for Elastec. That tapered collar. Very good keeper for all plastics. Also available, 2-pack. Also available in a football. So no matter what kind of fishing you do, be it you're a river fisherman, lake fisherman, tidal water fisherman, doesn't matter. The Micro Jig has a time and a place. I remember content we shot many years ago. I mean, right after GoPro came out, it's been so long. And it was the dog days of summer. It was blazing hot out. We were in the middle of a heat wave. We were in the middle of a drought. We went up on the Susquehanna River after work. I mean, it was hot. When I tell you it was hot, Nick.
It was hot.
I'm talking Alabama hot. I'm talking, just hot. The water was 90-something. And, we didn't have micro, but we got the smallest jigs we could find, which were like really compact finesse jigs. And the key was putting a little baby sweet beaver, smallie beaver type body, but the smallest one we could find on there, and getting a quick little vertical drop. So we got the heaviest little micro, not really micro, but almost micro jig. And that's when we kind of knew that, those little jigs were something. The Bitsy Bug.
Absolutely. Great jig.
All the little finesse jigs, which we talk about all the time. This is beyond finesse. This is micro. This is spinning rod stuff. Okay.
So George, I got to ask you some stuff here. So the setup that I used when I had success with the micro was the exact shroom setup you have there. You got the Shrooms jig with the little TRD on there, and that's a killer setup.
That really is.
It is. But here's a question. Here's the question I have for you with the other jigs that you have, and that's exactly how it sits. It's perfect. It's just something different that they haven't seen. But the other jigs that you have there, whether it's the Kitech or whether it's the missiles, what trailers do you recommend for them?
So your trailers are going to not vary a whole lot. You can take now the Kitech has a smaller hook in it. Okay. It has let's see if they tell us. It has a number 2 hook. So you can go back into our Z-Man department, or in the shop here, you can go back into our panfish department and you can buy the Micro TRD.
I like that.
It's the Micro TRD. 1.5-ish, 1.75 inch. Perfect combination. And then, of course, the Ike jigs will work very well with the standard TRD, but there's a crawl option also out there. There's a number of real quality small craws. I'm not talking baby rage bug. I'm talking like, TRD crawl size craws. I'm talking net bait Zaga crawl, where you can pinch the body back and get that tiny little crawl body. But I think I'm going to highly recommend everyone out there who's intrigued by the micro life, the micro style, stick with the TRD. Don't branch out too much. Stick with the TRD. If you're a Kitech guard spin guy, get yourself a pack or 2 of those little micro TRDs from Z-Man. You can cut back a TRD, shorten it up a little bit, and start your journey off that way. Z-Man also makes a tiny little TRD, little beaver looking bait that makes a nice trailer. But start off with the TRD, stick with the TRD, make this part of your arsenal. It's nice to have a little small box, little Plano box with a half a dozen jigs in it, tucked away in your boat, and let's say you're fishing a tidal river or tidal creek, and you're on fish on hardcover, and it just is terrible. Before you give up, get your little micro jig out, and you'll be surprised. More often than not, you get bit, and it's not all small fish. You do catch really good fish on this.
Absolutely.
Again, spinning rod.
Yep. And then I'm guessing, I like the 8-pound fluoro. I was going 8-pound fluoro with mine to a braid leader.
8-pound fluoro on a braid to an 8-pound leader, or a straight 8-pound fluorocarbon is the way to go. And, you can use the standard spinning rod that you use for your TRD fishing, that you use for your tube fishing. That is if you fish like a medium. The medium light stuff it's all right for like the little guard spin, but you're dealing with big fish and cover. So you want a little bit of oomph. It's not an open water thing for the most part. In some cases it is. Bridge piers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Bridge piers and things of that. You can use a lighter rod, but as with most cases, the rod's not like absolutely critical.
But I think you hit the nail on the head there, George. If you got a TRD rod, that's all you need.
Yeah, or a little rod that you like to fish a tube on, or your finesse rod.
Yeah.
I don't use real soft spinning rods, so when I say that, I might not be appealing to everybody correctly. I don't use anything under a medium for the most part. I use medium light in some circumstances. This is not one of them.
You just don't want to overpower it.
That little guard spin jig I'd do a medium light with.
I like that.
But the rest of those I'm doing a medium, because I fish my TRD on a medium. I fish a 7-foot to a 7.2 medium, extra fast to fast. That's what I do. Because that's what I'm comfortable with.
Yep.
And the people watching, whatever they're comfortable with, this is going to work for them.
Absolutely.
It's not like I have to have a certain rod and gear ratio. No, you don't. In most cases, if you're bouncing bottom, a wide range of rods do well.
Right.
As a matter of fact, the only time you really need to power up into like the heavy range is when you're in heavy cover and big fish. Because a big, a 5 or 6 pound bass, we had Michael Catt on tonight. He caught 2 611s in the back, or 2 6-pounders in the back of a creek. One was almost 7. A fish like that in tidal water, if you don't have the right rod and reel right rod and line combination, chances are you're not going to land that fish. Because when you set the hook and they make that move, you're not really in control right away.
You're going to be in trouble.
If you're in grass, the way they're cutting through that grass sideways, if you're not able to put tremendous pressure on them, and if you have a light hook, that thing's going to open. That's why, you see guys talking about it. If you picked up what Michael Catt was saying, he was using a 5/0 owner flipping hook. Yeah, they ain't opening that up. 4/0, 5/0 in that situation. Super line. We always talk about the super line hooks. I know it doesn't have a lot to do with micro jigs, but it kind of went there.
It went there, George.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yep, it went there.
But speaking about line, I see something over here.
Yeah. We're going to talk about a new line. Not a new concept, but a new line. And it's growing. It's growing because of the Demiki rigging craze that is associated with forward-facing sonar. But not really just a forward-facing sonar thing. It's just a Demiki rigging or drop shotting or finesse fishing, particularly in deeper water. Sinking braid. Okay. So what happens is, if you don't totally realize what's going on, when you make a cast with a 1/8 ounce jig head and a Demiki rig type bait, and you're fishing for a suspended fish and that bait's sinking, that bait is sinking down like this, but the majority of the line between you and that point in the water where the line enters, and you see that point kind of moving closer to you, that line is this way. So you're here, line comes off your rod, sinks down into the water, it goes this way. Then it goes down and then out to the bait. And in saltwater fishing, when you're drifting like that and your line's, that's called a scope. So a lot of times when you see these guys twitching these Demiki rigs with their rod tip down, they're twitching the line that's horizontal in the water, right? Parallel to the bottom. So sinking braid kind of eliminates that. It's like the fluorocarbon of braids. You get a more traditional little bow to your bait. And it's a different angle. It's a different feel. It's awesome in wind. Okay. You'll notice a lot of this stuff is thin. Okay. I'm going to break some numbers down for you here. If you guys are interested in this, there's a couple things about this braid that you're going to want to, I studied this pretty good. Last year when we were at the ICAST show with the Sunline guys, they explained it to me pretty good. So it's a 4 carrier braid, which means it's 4 strands woven into one, but it's actually 5 strands because they have a core that they weave around. That is what makes it sink. It's got a higher weight density, whatever. And it comes in a couple different colors. It comes in a real bright, like orange, but I think the real color to go for is this color here, which is called, hold on.
I think it's olive.
Is it olive or camo? Olive. And the reason why is the olive is olive green for 5.5 feet. Then it's 4 inches of dark gray. Okay. Then it's 12 inches of bright orange. So it kind of, when you cast it out there and you're fishing it, it kind of looks like a tracer going out through there. And you can see your line tremendously. And then you got all that invisibleness, 5.5, 6 foot of invisibleness between your knot and your first stretch of orange. So really nice. You get the best of both worlds. You get camo that most of us can't see and bright orange that most of us can see. So it's called olive. And it's super thin. This is the 18 and a half pound. This is the thickest one they make. And this has the same diameter as 5-pound test FC sniper fluorocarbon. That's the thickest one.
That is awesome. And you know what? It's funny, George, you showed me this today.
Yeah.
And I couldn't help but think, we were down at the Bay on Sunday, but that's okay. And then I went to Raystown on Monday. And boy, was it a difference, because now I got clear water, I got deep water, and my braid is kind of sitting there, just like you said.
Which, is a good thing and a bad thing. It's not necessarily the end of the world. I mean, that's how we fish.
That's how we fish.
You get used to it.
Mm-hmm.
This is really, really good when you have that day when the wind's blowing like crazy and your line's on a big belly and like this.
Oh, yeah.
You're not going to have that.
Well, when you showed me this line, again, like a special bait you led me on to about 2 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
This is how you learn stuff, everybody. This is why we talk about this stuff, because otherwise you would never know about that line right there or some of the baits we show you. And I started thinking to myself, I'm like, so now I can use braid that is not going to affect me in certain different ways.
Right.
This is interesting. I like this.
Yeah. So, one of the things that comes to mind is the Micro Rig suspended fish game. Another thing that comes to mind is finesse fishing and wind. It's just, you can build your whole style around this line. Now, it's pretty much spinning reel only, obviously, with those diameters. I mean, the 18-pound test is the thickness of 5-pound FC sniper. So call it 6-pound. All right. The 16-pound test is the equivalent of 4-pound FC sniper. The 13-pound test is somewhere between 3 and 4-pound sniper. The 11-pound test is the equivalent of 2-pound sniper.
It's crazy.
And the 7-pound test is thinner than that. I don't have a likeness for that. But a lot of these guys that are deep water fishing with finesse techniques, particularly Great Lakes, the northern smallmouth fisheries, the deep water, the 35, 40 foot of water, you get currents down there. Okay. There's currents in those lakes. There's currents underneath the water that are different than the currents on the surface of the water. And this greatly reduces the effect those currents have on your line. Also, there's a large percentage of people who are like uber finesse in those circumstances. 3-inch drop shot baits, number 4 hooks, 6-pound test leader, 5-pound test leader. This is well suited for that. Now there's something you guys are going to need to know about this line when you go to spool it. You're going to need a ton of backing on your spinning reel. These are 165-yard spools, but let's say you're doing the 13-pound braid or the 16-pound braid. That's the equivalent of like 4-pound test line. So kind of figure how much your reel will get filled up with 165 yards of 4. I mean, that's less than a quarter of your spool. So what I'm saying is you're going to want to put like 3/4 of a spool of backing on.
You got to think a little bit.
I mean, it's going to look like your reel's full when you add the braid. So because, it's $22.99 a spool, and you don't want to have to take it all back off and put more backing on. Just listen to Uncle George here and fill your spinning reel 3/4 of a way with backing, and you'll be fine.
I like it, George.
Yeah. Now, we did have a question earlier that I really liked from a Jan Lashley on the Micro Jig subject, and it's a great question, and it's valid. Does the Elastec, that plastic's known as TPE. Does that react with the skirts, the silicone skirts? And that's a fantastic question. The answer is no. What I like to do, because some of these jigs have, and some like your jackhammer, you put an Elastec trailer on there. Well, it's super, super hard to take that trailer off. So I like to put the whole thing away with the trailer on. Just be careful that the slot in your box that you put it in doesn't have a jig with a trailer on with regular plastic, or you'll have a bit of a mess upon your hands. Yeah, so we're glad you're listening. This is our tackle talk segment. You got cameraman Nick here. You got myself, George. We're coming to you live from Susquehanna Fishing Tackle headquarters here in beautiful downtown Columbia, Pennsylvania, 1 mile from the banks of the mighty Susquehanna River.
George, we got a great question here. Does it change with line that thin? Does it change the leader knot that you're going to use?
No, a Alberto knot will cinch up beautifully. Give yourself 6 to 8 wraps in both directions. You'll get a beautiful cinch. If you're a FG guy, no problem. You better have good eyes.
Yeah, right. Absolutely.
You better have good eyes. So, yeah, this is our tackle talk segment. And, this is a tackle shop.
What we do.
We love to talk about tackle. We love to talk about tournaments. We love to interview interesting people. We like to talk about techniques. And we like to do it every Thursday night. And we like that you guys are along watching. But like any good thing in the United States of America, as they say, nothing's free. And, we need a little help from you. We really need simple things from you. We don't need any money from you. Although I'm sure after this show, you're probably going to run over to sfttackle.com and just empty your wallet out. But no, that's not what we're asking for. We're asking for you to like. We're asking for you to share, comment. What all you got to do on this social stuff? I don't really follow this.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you're on here tonight, Mike's on here. Chris Shoplock's on here. If you're on, we want you to like, love it, send it to your friends, share it. If you're on YouTube, comment on there. And we appreciate you always following, because we give you great information every week. And we try to always keep you up to date on the latest trends.
Yeah. And,
I always say this, I tell the guys this, and we kind of take it for granted because we're in here all the time. But if you look at the information that we give you each week and you go into the detail, you heard detail today when Michael Catt was on there talking about his win. You hear detail that George talks about with the techniques and Mike all the time. If you take the little details, it will improve your fishing. And I'm a prime example of that. So there's a lot that you can take away each week. Stay tuned, and we're always going to bring it to you.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of our little niche. I mean, you guys can listen to one of these live shows every single day of the week. You probably can listen to 2 of them every single day of the week. You could probably listen to 3 of them every single day of the week.
Oh, yeah.
We're just glad you choose to listen to ours. But, everybody's got their little niche, their little hook. One of our things is we like to go into the minutia of fishing, the technique, break it down, the tackle, break it down. And then actually how to implement it. That's our gig. Now, we're going to have a lot of fun along the way, because that's who we are. But don't forget, that's our game, okay? So we have our little tackle talk section, which we're rolling through here. And
what else you got, George?
I have 2 more products I'd like to talk about, if you guys don't mind.
Oh, absolutely. Let's do it.
I've got some more Z-Tech or some more Z-Man. Here at SFT, we're big time Z-Man guys. We love it. We love the company. We love the baits. We just pretty much carry like most of it because it's so good. If you're not a Z-Man person, you should become one. The stuff is fish catching good. And this is the Mulletron. And as the name indicates, this is a soft swim bait body modeled after a mullet. which is a bait fish that inhabits brackish and salt water and is the backbone of the food source in a lot of areas. Well, a mullet, a shiner, a shad. I mean, the bass don't analyze them, they eat them, right? What's cool about this bait and what drew our attention to it is the tail. You know, we always talk about the boot foot swim bait. Nick, give me 1 second. I want to show people what a boot foot swim bait looks like. If you don't know, then you haven't been watching the show. So here is what a boot foot swim bait looks like. Okay. Hold it this way and you can see the boot. All right. That's a little 3-inch Crush City mare. Boot foot. There's like 300 other boot foots in here. This is a wedge tail. Oh, this might be tough, Nick. Because we got to look at it this way. Let's try it. This is a wedge tail. There you go. Okay, so they're both sides are the same. So that's what drew us to this bait. We have a little 3. Hold up. We have a 3.3 and a 4. Okay. So we're going to do all kinds of stuff with this. We're going to Demiki rig. We're going to put this on a jig head and swim it. We're going to use this as a trailer. I mean, same thing we do with the boot foot, only we get a more subtle but easy swimming action. We threw these baits on little lightweight Ned weights to regular old 1/8 ounce swim bait heads, and they're freaking awesome. And then you get the Z-Man colors. On top, we have Sexy Mullet. And on the bottom, we got Beer Run. Named after, of course, the famous song Beer Run. So that's the Mullet Tron. $4.99 a pack. And you're getting 4 baits in the 3.3 and 3 baits in the 4-inch. And because it's a Lastec, you can catch a tractor trailer load of fish on one of them. Now, you can rig these on any number of jig head. Z-Man makes all kinds of jig head, great for these. You can use a lot of people's jig heads. The little baby Strike King Squadron head has a great keeper for this. The Z-Man finesse eyes work awesome on this. Or you can do a belly weighted hook. And they make the Z, as in Z-Man, WG belly weighted hook that's made specifically for a Lastec.
That's a great hook.
Great hook, great way to rig, great bait.
And George, I got to ask you a question
Really like
about
it.
this bait. So you showed the boot foot, and then you showed the tail on this bait.
The wedge tail.
What is the action going to be a little bit different with both?
So the boot foot, you know, you get a lot of body roll, and you get that pronounced thump. The wedge tail is like half of it's subtle. It's a quivering motion, a little bit of body roll, and the body roll will actually come from the type of head that you put on it. Okay. The belly weighted hook will give you a lot more body roll. Certain jig heads will give you more body roll. You could actually Texas rig it and tightly peg a bullet weight to the nose. As long as that weight's connected to the bait, there's no looseness there, it's tight, you'll get good body roll, which is key. Now, I want to show you something. It's going to take me 1 second to grab.
Oh, yeah.
Be right back.
So while George is grabbing that, here we are, Tackle Shop Live. Excited. I see Mike's on here. Mike, congratulations, bud. I'm super pumped. And guess what? You know, we got something else to talk about after the show or close to the end, because Mike and we got a little bit heavier pockets from last weekend. So we'll be talking about that in a second. But anyways, congratulations, Mike. Congratulations, Caitlin. I seen David was on here. That's awesome. And if you didn't get to hear earlier, Michael Catt's interview about the Potomac win, do that. Go back and see the podcast, and you can check that out.
So I grabbed another version of the Mulletron. I also, from our great friend of the shop, Matthew Weimer, I also grabbed he's nice enough to provide us with these Trogs products. Nice. This is the Mulletron LT, and you can see that wedge tail, okay? LT stands for line throw.
Right.
And we've talked about this bait on the show. This is actually one I fish quite a bit. You can see a little bit of rust on there because I did a lot of striper fishing with it. Skips great, swims great, and you get that body roll and you get that wedge tail action. And, of course, it's a line through. So when you catch a fish, the bait slides up the line, right? So that is the family, the Mulletron line through, and then, of course, the Mulletron. Great stuff. You know we're big Z-Man fans. You know we're going to bring that to you. And with ICAST coming up, you're going to hear the word Z-Man a lot. Matter of fact, you're about to hear the word Z-Man again.
I like it, George.
So one of the problems with Z-Man is if you try to put a tungsten weight into it, unless you use theirs, you know, their weighting system, or you know, it has to have a barb on it. Forget trying to put a rattle in it. Well, they make a tool called the rattle sneaker. Okay. And the rattle sneaker is a method to which, you know, let's say we want to put a rattle in the end of our nice little jig here and put a rattle up here in the tail, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to take our rattle sneaker. We're going to pull off our safety device. I don't know if this is OSHA approved or not, because you do not want to stick that in your hand, okay? And we're gonna stick that into our TRD, and hopefully just a TRD. There we go. Okay, now we're gonna take this part off. There's the ramrod. We're gonna open up our secret compartment. We're going to get our glass rattle out. Or, let's say we wanted to add a tungsten nail weight to a Z-Man worm to make a Nico rig. Same thing. We're going to put our rattle down in here. Okay. And, hold up. Technical difficulties. I got a bad rattle. There we go. I'm gonna do it backwards. I'm gonna put the rattle in from the front. If you get one that's a little bigger than normal, you got to cheat the system. And then you just simply push that into your bait. You can kind of straighten that out a little bit. One of the things that you're going to notice, they're not going to come out. Probably it's a faint little rattle. I can hear it. So adding a rattle to, now the little rattle they give you, you can put in from the back side. I went one a little bit bigger that I found I could fit in from the front side. So you can experiment with that. Same difference. And that rattle will not come out of there. That tungsten weight will not come out of there. Put this back on so that when you throw it in your box in your boat where you keep your tools, you don't impale yourself the next time you're reaching in there. Rattle sneaker, weight, adding a tungsten weight. Great little tool. So I wanted to bring that to you tonight because that's a fun tool. So there you go. That is our tackle talk for tonight. Hope everybody enjoyed that. Already working on some cool stuff for next week too, by the way. Got some different stuff in the works for next week. Now, what I'm thinking, Nick.
Great job, George.
I'm thinking, I'm thinking that's pretty cool right there.
Well, I got to tell you, so when you were putting that rattle in that bait, which I think is very neat, and I do like the idea of using it as a Nico with the tungsten weights. But as you were doing that, it took me back to something I did I shouldn't have done. And I was up at St. Lawrence River, and you catch them fishing 40 feet deep,
Yeah.
very easily. And I'm going to fizz these fish, and kind of looks something like that. Next thing you know, a wave goes up, fizzer goes in my hand. So that's what happened right there.
Well, you could absolutely fizz a bass with that.
Oh, I know you could.
Because that's about the same diameter as my fizzing needle.
Pretty much.
And you have the plunger to clear it out.
There you go.
But now I'm going to tell you, in all fairness to the conversation, there are some limitations to the rattlesnaker. Like I said about the size of the rattle, the rattles that it comes with, you can insert from the back. But I find it works better if you put the rattle in here first on the front end. Because sometimes if you forget that you have a bigger rattle or something in there, it might not fit perfectly down through that hole. Most of the time it does. But the other limitation is if you're using it to put a tungsten weight into a Z-Man type worm, you're limited to the diameter of the weight, which I'm going to tell you right now is a 1/16 of an ounce in tungsten. A 1/16 of an ounce in tungsten is the max diameter you're going to get in there. Now, you can always put 2 of them in. They're not that long. And have an 1/8. But
and like you said, when you put that in there, it kind of seals itself back up.
It's not coming out. And if you want to do that, Z-Man makes a nail weight system for Nico rigging their bang stick, which is a very popular technique. Nico rigging their fatties, which is a very they make a beautiful insert nail weight, and it stays in. It's got a double barb system on it. This is a more traditional. The weight is completely inside the worm. The nice thing about their weight system is the weight's on the outside of the worm. You get a little more bottom contact, a little more feel.
Right, I can see that.
So it depends on your style. That's all I'm saying. But the rattle aspect is off the chart.
Well, good stuff, George. I see you had them micro jigs there.
Yeah.
And, I see some rods over here.
Well,
so what are you thinking?
A lot of the spinning techniques are taken over. And when I started talking about these micro jigs to myself, I'm like, you know what? We should talk about a couple spinning rods.
Right.
And what we call power spinning rods. It's kind of a thing now.
It is.
All the brands we carry in here have numerous options in power spinning rods. I'm not talking like Q sticks. I'm talking like, mediums on steroids, or maybe a true medium medium heavy. And 7.1 to 7.3 is the general length. And, I picked out a couple. I went shopping.
Diversity.
Went down the aisles. I picked up one of our better selling ones, which is the Victory 7.1 medium heavy.
Ooh, I like it.
That's a cameraman Nick special. He's a big St. Croix guy.
Absolutely. 7.1
medium heavy Victory. All the things we talked about tonight, you can do on this. Right? I went over to the Mega Bass rack and looked through there, and they have all kinds of rods that I like in power spinning. And they're called the Enforcer. Okay.
7.4.
7.4. Pretty much the same size. Medium to medium heavy. Medium on steroids. Certainly not limited to none of these rods are limited to heavy duty work. And then, I went over to the Shimano racks and kicked around a little bit. They're so light. And I picked up a Corrado 7.2 medium heavy. So if you peruse the rod racks here in the store, if you go to sfttackle.com, Daiwa has some wonderful ones in their Tatula Elite series, in their Kajay series, in their Steez series, Shimano, Loomis, iRod. They all have them. Blues Signature series. There's a power spinning rod in the Signature series.
So George, I'm with you on your choices there. Great choices, but it's funny. Traditionally, a lot of people were using 6.6s, right? And now we're at the 7.2s, 7.3s, and I'm loving it. What are the pluses of using something that size?
Well, first of all, it's like leverage. Okay. So, if I told you that we're going to dig a stump out of my yard and you were going to help me, and, I had a 4-foot digging iron or an 8-foot digging iron, you're going to use the 8-foot.
Right.
Because you have more leverage. So we all of us who go back, all of us on here tonight, I'm looking at names here. I'm looking at old school names. I'm looking at guys that I know that have been shopping in this store since day one. We all started with 6-foot rods. All of us did that are on here and watching this show and have been fishing for 40 years. And we went to 6.6 and we're like, oh my God, this is the greatest thing that ever happened to me. And then we saw our pros that we idolized buy a 7-foot. And we're like, oh, 7-foot rod. That's insane. We tried a 7-foot rod and we're like, are you kidding me? That's it. And then the rod building companies started developing the rods we wanted. And then they said, hey, let's build a 6.8, 6.9, 6.10. So generally speaking, I'm going to say that most people who own spinning tackle and are proficient with it are fishing somewhere from 6.8 to 7.2. Right?
Right. Absolutely.
So what does 7.3 and 7.4 do for you is it's more leverage, power spinning, a little bit longer rod, a little more leverage, a little more power to move a fish. Or open water, long distance casting, setting the hook on the end of a long distance cast, or throwing a slightly bigger bait. And, there's certain techniques that we do that a spinning rod is very well suited to. And one of them is fishing a Nico rig. And if you watch the Wheeler Elite tournament that's on right now, you'll see some of these guys out on these ledges throwing a Nico rig. And, they're throwing a 6 to 7 inch worm, rigged up Nico style, trying to get that one bite. And they're using a long, powerful rod. Okay. Because they're dealing with 4 to 6 pound fish. So, in your arsenal, if you're a fisherman that fishes a wide variety of waters, or if you're a big technique guy, the power spinning rod has its place. And if you're a multi-species guy, it's a great rod to take on a weekend flounder fishing trip with your buddies, some striper fishing, some speckled trout fishing, some, maybe some small redfish. I use them in my boat. I tend to gravitate towards slightly more powerful rod actions. It's just always have.
I'm with you.
I just like that. I like a medium over a medium light, and I like a medium heavy. When I fish a tube, let's just take a basic, simple tube for smallmouth bass on my beloved Susquehanna River. I prefer a medium heavy rod. That's what I prefer. I'm gonna make sure I'm getting the right rod by reading the handles of the rods in my boat. Last weekend we fished a tournament down on the Chesapeake Bay. You and Mike took a side bet off of me and Corbin,
Sure did, Mike.
$100 side bet. And, I don't do a lot of spinning down there, but I had 2 on the deck. And I had a drop shot on one, and I don't use a drop shot rod.
I don't either.
Because when you hook the right size fish on a boat dock with a drop shot rod in a tidal river like that, you can kiss them goodbye.
You're going for a ride.
I have my drop shot is either I was finessing, so I was using 10-pound leader.
Mm-hmm.
It's usually 12.
Right.
And a medium heavy rod. I had my shaky head, medium heavy rod. And that's where that power spin comes in.
Well,
So
there's something that you always said, George, that I really believe in as well. I think our fishing's more similar than we even know, that you will build your system around the rod you have.
you will.
And we do that.
When you're new into fishing, you're going to seek the advice of your fishing partners. You might be in a bass club. You might be new to this. You might come to Susquehanna Fishing Tackle because it's all day, every day. And you need a starting point. So you need somebody who, is going to take the time to explain that starting point to you. And then from there, your experience with that fishing rod in your hand is going to determine that. Now, Nick and Mike and Corbin and I had a big conversation after our horrific loss that we took, our beating that we took last week at the hands of Nick and Mike. They took us apart. And we talked about the power of the rod and the line because we were hooking these big fish in this grass. It was windy, 25 mile an hour. You're struggling with every aspect of boat control. You got your power poles down, what have you, the thick milfoil. These big fish are manhandling you. And, we talked about braid versus fluorocarbon and rod power. Now, for me, that's work for a heavy rod. Now, it doesn't have to say heavy to be a heavy, but it needs to feel like a heavy.
Right.
And I was chatterbaiting with an 843 Loomis, which is a medium heavy fast, and that was borderline.
Well, our debate was, George, and we'll never know the answer until we try it. The debate was we were using medium heavy action rods with 15-pound fluoro, but we were getting bites. But Mike and we did lose 4 or 5 key bites that could have gave us a potential to do better. But if we would have used braid, like we were like, should we have been using braid? Would we have still got those bites that we didn't end up getting? That's a debate.
Couple aspects of it that I'd like to shed light on. I love this conversation.
Yep.
First of all, a lot of that is in your head.
I believe it.
I mean, it gets in everybody's head. I mean, when you catching fish left and right on fluorocarbon, and then you switch up to braid and you stop getting bit, right away, you're micromanaging your whole deal. Now, I'll tell you, somebody who's probably watching the show is Ben Buckhunter, and he's probably chuckling right now because he fishes down there all the time. Swim jig and chatterbait is his life, and he is heavy power, straight braid, 50 all day long and smiling the whole time. Every time he sets the hook, he has this chuckle, and he's just like, yeah. And what happens with that braid, as you well know, those big fish are going places. And you don't have any control over that for a little bit.
Right.
You catch a 6-pounder in that grass environment and you hit them right now, they're going someplace. And that place is wherever they want to go for a minute. Mm-hmm. And, if you don't have the ability to end that move, they're gone. I can't even, as much time as we spent, I can't even tell you how many fish that I have hit with a 7.6 heavy flipping stick, 65 braid, and a 4.0 straight shank flipping hook and had them make a complete ass out of me.
Really?
Because it's just on, man.
Yep, it's game on.
And, when as that line's cutting that braid, or as that braid's cutting that grass, let me say that correctly. As the braid's cutting the grass, if it's thick grass, that grass is balling up on that fish. And until it balls up enough to calm them down, it's an anchoring point for that hook to pull out. I mean, how many times are you bringing in a big fish and a ball of grass, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, he's off.
Yeah, it happens all the time.
Yeah. So, again, going back to, if you learn your equipment, that's your style. there's one way to answer the debate.
Try it.
The next time you go down, have one with braid and one without.
Yeah, that's the only way you can do it.
Now, if you have medium heavy rods and you put braid on them, they're going to act more like a heavy.
Right.
So,
see, and George, that's the way I like to fish.
Yeah.
I like to use the same rod, but I'll switch it up with maybe a different line. I don't like to go to a completely different rod that I don't feel right with and then try to make it work. I do what you say. I like to build my arsenal around my rod and I'll make it work.
Yeah.
That's just what I
well,
like
you
to
build
do.
your fishing style around
That's
it too.
what I mean. Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
And newbies who get good advice to start with, that first rod, when they start having success with it, is going to influence how they go for a while, because they're going to have phenomenal confidence.
Yep.
And all of us are. I mean, if you chatterbait with the same two rods, depending on the environment, you're going to get really, really good with them. If you swim jig with the same rod, if you flip with the same rod, so on and so forth, you're going to get really, really comfortable with that. Now, yeah, do we like to buy new rods? Of course, we like to buy new rods all the time and try them out.
Absolutely.
But we're not changing those systems that we built.
No.
We might add to it, but we're not changing it.
And make no mistake about it. I mean, with the bites we had, we put a lot of fish in the boat. We had a 20-pound bag. There's nothing really to micro look at. But you know how it is after a tournament, George. You're looking at every aspect of the day, and that's what you do. That's how it goes. But it was a great day.
I remember in single day team tournaments when 20 pounds was impressive. Now 20 pounds doesn't get a check.
Yeah, 20 pounds got us ninth. But here's the kicker of it: 20 pounds, which is what we had. 21. It wasn't even 21 pounds. Got third.
Yeah.
So, or second. That's pretty interesting right there.
Well, it's very telling of the fishery,
mm-hmm.
And the Potomac as well. Both these fisheries. And if you think about the incredible fishing pressure they have, and I was thinking about that when I was watching the Elite on Wheeler today. You want to talk about some bodies of water that get some pressure. The Tennessee Valley River lakes. I mean, that's just pressure at a whole new level. And they're massive lakes. And they get beat on like a rented mule. I mean,
how big is Wheeler?
Oh, it's at least 70 miles long.
Wow.
And it might be closer to 100 from dam to dam. But it's every bit of 70. Okay? So,
George, just bringing us into tournament talk.
Oh, it could be getting there.
Okay.
We might go, we might cross over here.
Okay.
This might be a segue, as they say in the radio business.
Well, I'm interested because, Wheeler. I don't know much about Wheeler. I'm sure you do and have some insight on it.
I've never fished it.
Is that a power generated?
Yeah. So the Tennessee River is dammed up, making many lakes to generate power. Back in the Depression era. And, you got Gunnersville, Wheeler, so on and so forth. So the water runs out of one into the other. Well, as even on our little reservoir here, we have our Conowingo tournament series. We got our little, I don't even know how big that sucker is, like 7-8 miles long.
Yeah.
I mean, she's a big old lake. But it's the same thing, just in a micro size. It's a reservoir river run. Okay. Now ours is dammed up for generation. There's no locks, so you can't leave. But it's the same thing. Post spawn, particularly post spawn and summer pattern. It's all about current generation. And the key is figuring out how to catch fish when they're not generating water. Because when the flows go down, they can only run at certain periods, which is generally the peak generation time.
Right.
So, if you're thinking about this, like your peak generation time, your mornings, your evenings, people come home from work, kids come home from school, families preparing dinner, generation goes on because the power grid need is up. So that's when they run. If it's, extreme drought, that might be the only time of the day they run. So you better figure out how to catch fish when it's not current. And we saw guys today from the dam at the top. Steve Kennedy ran all the ways up to the tail race, to the dam at the bottom to way the hell up the Elk River. Wes Logan went way the hell up the Elk River, I think it's called. And we saw typical summer. And if you fish a reservoir, and I'm talking local, for us it's our Conowinga Reservoir that we fish tournaments on. Wherever you live, I'm sure you all have a reservoir that has power generated. Maybe you cats up in New York who live in natural lakes don't, but the rest of us do. So you need to learn this. And it's the same principles on Wheeler as it is on our Conowingo or your whatever it's called. A bass is a bass. He doesn't know if he lives on the Susquehanna or the Tennessee. It works the same way, right? So, we saw the typical stuff today. We saw a couple guys try to make the offshore ledges work, and they did. Dragon football jigs, typical. Drop shotting, typical. I don't know if we saw the hair jig play. I don't know if we saw the structure spoon play, the big spoon. I don't know if that played. The ledges on Wheeler are a lot shallower.
I did take notice of that.
A lot of them are like 4 foot deep on top, 6 foot deep on top. So, you saw Swindell chatterbaiting them because they had grass on them. So we saw that. We saw a lot of swim jigging. I watched Brandon Lester this morning fish a swim jig. And to answer the question, no Alabama shake, which makes sense. You know why? He's from Tennessee.
He didn't want to do Alabama shake.
There was no Alabama shake. He was fishing that swim jig exactly like a spinnerbait. And the other thing I noticed about him that separates a pro from us, his casting accuracy was freaking surgical.
That's amazing.
Speaking of surgical, we got 3D Danny checking in from Toyota, Japan.
Isn't that awesome?
3D Danny's in the house.
Greetings.
Lake
Wheeler, 67,000 acres.
Crappy Kev is a treasure trove of knowledge. He hits us with the juice every time we need it.
And that is good stuff right there. But George, as you said, that some of those guys went up into those rivers, those little.
Yeah. We had Wes Logan frogging a giant pad field.
But do you think the reason why they're doing that is to chase current, or not really?
I think they're fishing resident creek fish. And resident creek fish is one of the answers to what do I do when there's not a lot of current? I go up shallow. I fish pads. Why? It's hot. It's sunny. And what's the pad give the bass?
Everything he needs. Yep.
Cover. Shade and ambush point. What's the laydowns on the steep little creek banks give the bass? It's like Michael Catt said, they had their nose tucked into it. Something swims by unsuspecting, they jump out and grab it. So those fish, that's a technique to avoid, to do as an option of, hey, there is no current. We saw that in play. Sorry, I'm looking at my notes, but I can't remember all this stuff. We saw the ultimate, the mayfly hatch. Now, if you haven't experienced a proper mayfly hatch, have you ever been on a lake with a proper mayfly hatch?
I have not. Not the way you guys are talking. No.
It's a good one when the branches on the trees along the shore are bent down.
That's amazing.
With mayflies. Literally bent down. And they're those big, like brownish, greenish ones.
Mm-hmm.
They're like The fly tying guys call them Hendrickson or something like that. They're big, and there's billions of them. And what you get with that is a really cool pattern. Okay. John Cox is leading this thing with 22-2, and I'll bet you a lot of it had to do with those mayflies.
Absolutely.
Because when the mayflies fall off the tree into the water, those bass are underneath there waiting for that. You know, you can bump a tree. You know, I remember when Pete Gluzik was fishing the FLW championship on Three Rivers. They had a huge mayfly hatch, and he actually asked the tournament director if it was legal to bang the trees. And the tournament director goes, absolutely. And that was one of his patterns.
Well, it's funny you say that. There was a commentator on live today that I'm sure they were saying to him in the background going like this, don't say any more, because he said, he goes, yeah, before the tournament started, I told John Lester that what he needs to do is he needs to put on a 1 ounce weight with a hook on it, throw it into a tree and just start shaking it and get those mayflies to fall into the water.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden you can catch the fish. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, you can throw a pop-R on them, and let me tell you what else is deadly underneath those trees. And you don't have to shake the mayflies off of them. There's enough of them falling in the water. Let me tell you what's deadly. A frog.
Okay.
A frog is deadly in that situation. So, day one, John Coxon first with 22-2. No surprise there. He won an FLW championship there.
But you know what's cool about that, George? See, day one is fun, but you don't know who's going to have a camera boat. Tomorrow, we know he'll have a camera boat.
Yeah.
We're going to learn some stuff.
They went all Alabama just about today.
We're going to learn what
Yeah.
Cox was doing now.
Oh, we are. John Garrett, 19-7. John Garrett's fresh off a win. Second place. I mean, hammer. Matty Wong. You know, Matty Wong, in his second year on tour, was on the brink of, at the Thousand Islands, he was on the brink of
Elimination.
gone. And since that tournament, he has answered the bell by not just getting by numerous top tens.
He must have said, you know what? This is where I want to be.
He got it. And, of course, in fifth place, Hackney. You know you got to root for Hackney.
I'm so glad he's doing good.
And then how about our boy Johnny Cruz in sixth place? He's good on that lake. All right. One last thing, Nick, and then we're going to let the people go. You know, I wish I had my hat on, my fishing boat docks hat. It's back at my desk. I don't want to waste people's time by going back and getting it. But Zach Burge at the last Bass Pro Tour tournament on the Chowan River asked permission to let his boat sink by taking out his drain plug and going underneath a bridge. And you've all heard this. And the tournament director even said to him, do you have a remote drain plug? And he said, no, but I'll keep my hand on the boat the whole time when I jump in. And his official is the assistant tournament director for the FLW. And he didn't say a word. He let him jump in. Then they DQ'd him, took away they only DQ'd what he did under that bridge, which was 7 keepers.
Which is big.
Yeah. And not only that, it affected the outcome of the rest of the day because I'm sure he was one pissed off son of a gun.
Yeah, he's mentally fried.
And I'm sure he probably just said, you know what? I'm out of here.
Yep.
Well, guess what? They did today. They reversed that. And they're giving them fish back, and they're moving them up to 7th place. Not good enough. Maybe he wins that tournament. Now, Drew Gill won it, and he did a fine job. Michael Neal was in second. I mean, it's hard to beat the real deal, Michael Neal. But you know what? Maybe he goes from 7th to 3rd because he doesn't go home. He doesn't quit fishing.
My question with that, George, is let's say I was the guy that was in 7th. Now they took the DQ away or whatever they did. That changed the whole pay structure.
Yeah, well, I'm sure they gave him his money back.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I'll tell you this much. What happened to him is like if you say to the police officer, can I run this red light? And he says, absolutely. And then he watches you run the red light and he arrests you. The man asked permission to go do that. I'll tell you, man, this outfit has got some of the most talented fishermen on tour that are being yo-yoed around by this wishy-washy. I mean, it never ends.
It doesn't.
We're going to have 86 fishermen. We're going to have 56 fishermen. We're going to have, we don't even know how many fishermen. It's going to cost this much. It's going to cost that much. We're going to have coverage every day. We're only going to have coverage on, I mean.
I'm glad you brought that up.
Can we get some consistency here?
Because we're not talking semi-professional league here.
We're talking to some of the best tour anglers there are.
The guys we've always watched.
Yeah.
That took a chance, and man, they got to be thinking to themselves, why did we do this?
I mean, look at this top list at Show On. Drew Gill, Michael Neal, Dustin Cannell, Jacob Wheeler, Zach Burge. How about if they all just decide to pack up and go to the Elite Series?
Yeah.
What they going to do over there at the Bass Pro Tour?
It wouldn't be good.
It's not going to be good at all.
I think this offseason is going to be very, very interesting.
Well, we just need some consistency here. I mean, you don't understand. You spend an ungodly amount of money to stay on tour, and you base massive decision-making outcomes on what officials and rules tell you. And then you say, no, we're going to DQ you because you got out of the boat. Yeah, I know that. I asked you this morning. Do you remember me? I'm Zach Burge. Yeah, I was the guy talking to you this morning about getting out of the boat and sinking my boat. I don't know if you talked to 8 or 10 other guys that were going to sink their boat. Maybe the next 9 guys waiting in line to talk to you behind me wanted to sink their boat too. I don't know. It could have been something to do today. But you said, yeah. And you asked me if I had a remote drain plug. And now they gave me back his points, but did they give him back his money? Did it?
Yeah. And it affected the tournament.
What if he would have fished third?
And George, I got to ask you something. Did you ever sink your boat to fish somewhere?
Not intentionally.
Ooh. So you forgot your plug unintentionally.
Well, anyone who hasn't forgot their plug is either doesn't own a boat or is a liar.
That is true.
But I have sank my boat in other manners.
Oh. You care to?
And I've been with people who've sank their boat.
Okay.
I've been in multiple boat sinkings.
That's not good, George.
We make it back to the ramp every time, though.
That's all that matters.
Yeah.
That's all that matters right there.
I look at it as a good rinsing of the interior and the bilge area.
That is true.
Yeah.
That is true. That's good.
But I try
stuff.
not to do that anymore in my older years.
But that's a big news right there. You know, another big news, George, and I know we talked about it, and it's kind of sad because it kind of hits home for the shop here. But Derek Hudnall from the Elite Series has retired.
Yeah.
And halfway into the season, he just decided to call it a day, you know, and that's the realization of the sport.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's a very expensive. If you went to the bank with a business plan to become a tour level angler and did a beautiful presentation, I mean, the man might actually laugh you out of his office because on paper, the money doesn't make sense. But the reality is it's a changing pay grade. You become, you know, all these guys have a potential that is far beyond the average fisherman. And a lot of guys that don't fish tour, don't fish it for the reason of finances. Okay? And I'm going to throw a name out here for you. Todd Castledine.
Yeah, great fisherman.
I mean, he doesn't fish tour because he doesn't want to lose money. He's making too much money fishing in Texas. But anyways, the changing pay structure means, you know, and these contracts are written, you know, qualify for a classic, get paid X. this finish in a classic, get paid X. This finish in a classic, angler of the year, boom, boom, boom. And that's all you need to go from I can do this to top 5%. And then it's a whole different thing. And the thing you're overlooking is the passion. Okay. I mean, I don't sell fish and worms and hooks because I don't have a passion for it. You don't do your job because you don't have a passion for what it lets you do and what you do and who you are. And all these people watching here are the same way. And that's the thing that you don't, yeah, you can look at the money. And Derek Hudnall, I am sure, especially after we've had time to spend time with him numerous occasions, I am sure that he made a very logical business decision that was very difficult to make because of his passion for his job.
Yep. Absolutely.
But I'm sure that the people that he fishes local with are not going to be happy about this.
Oh no, he's going to be in their neck of the woods now.
I'm sure he's not. That the local contingent is not going to be happy.
And you know what? Congratulations to Derek for 9 years.
Yeah,
on tour. That's a lot.
That's veteran.
And great person. He was at the shop here. Did a couple shows for you guys.
Yeah, we've had him on Tackle Shop Live. He's come in and worked events here at the shop. And the ultimate professional, great guy. And we look forward to seeing him again.
Absolutely.
We look forward to seeing him again.
Well, we're running a little long here.
Yeah, we need to put a bow on this, Nick. You need to get me home here. Everybody.
We're going to wrap it up.
We're going to thank everybody.
But what we're going to do is promise you on the next Tackle Shop Live, we're not going to forget, but we're going to wait for Mike to get here. And we're going to talk about last weekend.
Oh, well, I kind of spilled the beans on that.
Yeah, but we're not done with that yet. Right, Mike? I know you're on here, Mike. But anyways.
You guys are rough.
Thank you, everybody, for coming to another great episode of Tackle Shop Live. And next week, we're going to be coming even with better stuff. We can't wait. Stronger. And that's it.
Let's see if you can hit the right button.
I don't think I can, but I'll try.
This one?
No. But thank you for coming along for another episode of Tackle Shop Live. Till next week.
Yeah.
I met you on a sunny day. Right there, you took my breath away. Young and pretty, was it just a dream? The next day, you called me up. You told me I'm your little buttercup. You came over and you fell into my arms. Well, I know what I feel. Please tell me your love is real.